But still, and this was very much surprising to me when I heard it this morning, still with the same people in reign. I mean, government hasn't changed.
Exactly. Even with this opening situation, the rulers of the country remains the same.
Yeah.
I mean, the same generation is ruling the country. There was not how do you say a shift to the new generation. I don't want to talk about young generation. Just want to say new generation of rulers.
Or new people.
New people. So now, up to now, the situation remains the same. Yes, I can say that today we are moving slowly to a transformation. Let's say to a transformation of this elite. Slowly.
How would you describe this kind of transformation you are just talking about or trying to introduce?
First of all, I can say that, as you said, or as I said, is that the same elite of the regime has the power. The elite of the regime, the same people. But these people are, 80 years old, 70 years old, old-fashioned, with the same mindset, the same way as it was in the 70s, the same way of governing, under the Soviet model, even if the Soviet Union moved on and there was transformation. What brings the country, why this happened and why the transformation didn't started earlier? Just because of the situation at that time. We faced more than 17 years of terrorism.
Can you give us some numbers? Because the
of
numbers
course.
are very impressive.
Very impressive. Before the numbers, I can say that the country during the 17 years has been put on hold. Nothing happened. No way. I mean, we were facing a lot of crises, economic crisis, economic reforms, institutional reforms. The barrel at that time was at reached $9 per barrel, which is nothing. And
today
is more or less $80 per barrel. So this was a lot of challenges in the same time for a country who were undermined by the violence and by the starting terrorism. How to come back to your question? Just to describe, to give some figures. Just to give you a figure, the peak in terms of terrorist actions, the peak was in 1996. We reached the peak. And the peak at that time was more than 2,800, more than 2,800 terrorist actions during 1 year, 1996.
They were addressing what? What was the reason? What was addressing the government?
The government, the people who works for the government, or normal people. I mean, the people in the streets. There were bombing everywhere. There was bombs in the markets. Everybody was targeted. Okay. Everybody. I mean, the simple citizen, or the government, or the police, or everyone who works for the government. In terms of casualties, there was from 1991 to 2001, more or less, more than 200,000 or 250,000 people has been killed.
So it was more or less a civic war, what you were facing.
We don't call it civil war, but it was more or less a civil war. It was a war against terrorism, but everybody was involved. Everybody was involved.
How many people do live in Algeria?
There is now there is 34 million people.
How would you describe today the political system, and how would you describe the social situation of the majority of the people? I'm not talking then by the elite, but really majority of the people.
Okay, if we talk about the majority of the people has access, because of the oil and gas, access to health, free, access to education, which is free, thanks to oil and gas again.
And on which level is it for free? You do have also private schools.
Yeah, we have private schools, but I say that these private schools is for the privileged people.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is not the issue today. Today, the issue is for the majority of the people, not for the privileged. The private schools are good, but it's nobody can. I mean, all the people cannot get the benefits of this. The education means school, high school, or universities. I mean, people. I mean, it is free of charge. It's the intervention of the government. I mean, the government put the money in this, and the education is free. Healthcare, free.
Living conditions like housing.
Okay, housing. There is a lack today of more or less 1.5 million housing. A lack.
Okay.
So today, even the government put for the next plan, 5 years plan, 150,000 billion dollars for the development. I mean, for infrastructures, for housing. So they distribute wealth, or they distribute welfare to the population through, let's say, housing first.
Okay.
For the next 5 years, I mean, for the next plan, it's more or less a centralized economy under the umbrella of reforms.
Okay.
Okay, and even for politics, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to tell that it is an autocratic system, but it is a centralized political system under the umbrella of democracy.
Okay, but let's go back to the to the social conditions.
Yeah, social conditions.
Housing. Is there a huge gap between cities and rural areas? I mean, Algeria is not a small country.
It's not a small country. Two-thirds of the population lives in the north. The desert is the desert, so just 1/3 or less than 1/3 of the population lives in the desert. But again, oil and gas help to improve day-to-day the way of life of or the conditions of way of life of the population. So
there is enough of food, there is water, there's everything.
And that's why at somehow probably I'm more liberal, but I can say that somehow Algeria didn't want to be member of a WTO. Just why? We have to understand why. Just because they are still supporting or funding the basic, how do you say it? The basic needs, which is milk, bread, which is the basic needs.
Yeah.
And also they are supporting access to electricity. 95% of the country has access to electricity.
Okay.
So everything, 95%, it is huge. So again, thanks to oil and gas, thanks to the revenues of oil and gas, that the population is living not in top conditions,
But also not in deep poverty.
But not in deep poverty if we compare it to India, for example, or if we compare it to other countries, Sub-Saharan African countries. We can't compare.